Damn, Scott. So concept or just random like finding? Was this
No, far from random finding. Far.
okay.
This is from a Red Bull shoot.
Okay.
And I have to give it to Gabe Otier, who was the marketing manager at Red Bull Canada at the time. He worked out all the details. His idea was basically a guy skateboarding from barge, or from container to container over the sun, recreating the Red Bull logo. So what you don't see there is
Gotcha.
the bulls
Wow.
pushed up to the edge of the container. They were made out of a mirror,
Gotcha.
and then we had light shining on them, but you just couldn't see them. So we did a couple of days.
It's insane.
Back on shore around the shipyard and whatnot, and then they built this. It's on a huge barge with a tugboat, and this one, man, there's a lot that went into this too. So rumor had it that the guys at the shipyard called the Coast Guard and said, tonight there's going to be some stuff happening in the water. Wink, wink. You don't need to be there. You don't need to come see it. They pulled some strings so that we were allowed to do this. It's in the Bay of English Bay, in downtown Vancouver. You picture, a sunny day, thousands of people at the beach, and I'm on this, on the shore with a 600 millimeter pointing out to, they're like, "What are you doing?" I had no idea, right? What was happening. And so the weird part with this, if this is still, it's hard enough for a skateboarder, right? But if it's still, it's somewhat easy. The water the tide's ebbing, right? So it's flowing out pretty fast. The tugboat is trying to keep it in one spot, and it's doing this, right?
Yeah.
So every time the guy skates to the end, he's trying to click his tail off the end. It either drops or goes up, and it's throwing him off. And then I'm trying to radio to the tug driver, like back it up, forward, that kind of thing, while I'm trying to run up and down the beach to compensate for just a few feet to get the sun right in the middle,
right.
And then, so we had a few practice tries. Obviously at the end of the day, the sun up north here, the sun drops pretty quick once it hits the horizon. So we were shooting for, 15, 20 minutes, and then the sun got to this right spot, and then we radioed to Ryan and said, all right, you've got basically 2 tries before the sun's gone. And nollie heel flip, landed first try. And it's just,
I love it.
mind-boggling.
Yeah, a lot that goes into that, but I love the concept of that. And just, I can only imagine trying to line that sun up perfectly in there and just running up and down the beach and going, but well worth it.
Yeah. Wow. What the photo doesn't show really is all the movement that, under the skater as well, that it looks like it's just there.
Right.
Just, sitting there, but it's moving all over. So
yeah. Wow.
Definitely interesting.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Jeez. I mean, this just shows again your light and the usage of light and the way you compose and do this and the way you're shooting it. I mean, just that composition from like the slope going down from one corner of the top down to the right, it's beautiful.
Yeah. That was definitely planned in the shot. It was a kind of a weird day here. It was Whistler backcountry. We'd been out all day. We got a bunch of great shots, and the riders just wanted to keep going and going and going. And we're on the snowmobiles, and we probably got an hour to get back to our cars. It's getting dark, and they found this feature. They wanted to hit it, and basically, I set it up, and I did like you said, I tilted the camera so that those lines are kind of perfect like that. He's not. It's kind of an optical illusion because he's actually landing in the black. That
gotcha.
He's not going. He's not going down.
Yeah, I see that. Okay.
But this is the first time he hit it. He didn't know the. You guess the speed that you want.
Yeah.
And you hope you make the landing. Well, this one he went way too fast. And what makes this one stand out over the other ones, I think, is he goes too big, opens up. So he's opening his arms to slow down his rotation. Otherwise, he's just going to spin and basically explode at the bottom. So that's why you've got this kind of flying bird-like look, which was a complete accident on his part. But for the photo, I think it really adds to it. And at the time, I couldn't get this thing published. Because everyone thought it looked weird because he has no head. Like, he's missing his head. We're not going to use it. And it was not until later that it sort of made its rounds. But I think, you know, it made a cover of a photography magazine. It didn't really do well in the action sports, but you know, the non-endemic stuff.
I love it. Just
did
that
well.
deep blue to the light fade, like the gradient of like blues going down is so sick. Like how it is, like, man, gorgeous.
Yeah, it was
stuff.
so late in the day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So tell us a little bit about shooting with Travis Rice, because I believe this is from all the films.
Oh, you're cutting out
Photographer for. Sorry, were you the principal photographer for all of the Travis Rice films?
there. Not all.
Okay.
For Art of Flight.
Art of Flight.
And
That
then
was insane.
I did a bunch on the fourth phase. Yeah. So this is from Art of Flight. It's actually not Travis. It's John Jackson.
Jeez.
In this one.
Holy
but
cow.
Here's the interesting thing about this, and I don't know if anyone knows this story, and I don't think the guys at Red Bull know this story. But when Travis first approached me to go on this trip, it's, you know, you're a month in Alaska and you're just flying all day, so you can just imagine how expensive it is to go on those trips. So I reached out to Red Bull and I said, hey, you should hire me to go on this trip with Travis. And they're like, well, the Alaska shots never work out for us because we don't see any branding, because the rider's too small. You know, we don't see the sticker on his board, we don't see the logo on his hat. So for us, and at the time, Art of Flight wasn't going to be what it was. You know, like nobody had a vision that it was going to be as big as it was. So they denied me going or hiring me for the job, because they just felt that it wasn't worth their money, because they weren't going to get enough out of it. So my goal was to be on that trip and prove them wrong. So whenever I could incorporate the Red Bull logo, I did. So for this shot, and
that's insane.
As a photographer working on a film project, you don't really jump out and say, hey, I want to do this and I want to do that and try and take over, right? You're there sort of the second guy, right? They're making a film and you just document what's happening. But I said to Kurt, who's the director, I was like, hey, I really want to get a shot of a helicopter nosediving over the line while one of the riders is riding it. And that's where that came about. And my thinking was that's the biggest Red Bull logo I've ever seen. Yeah. And I'm going to get that in a shot. Yeah. And that's how I'm going to come back and say, gotcha. See, you can do it. Yeah. So that was my thinking behind there. And then obviously the pilot, you know, really went for it.
Those were iconic ones, how the helicopter just was taking off in that, like, you know, Art of Flight. I mean, I've snowboarded a handful of times, but I remember watching this film over and over again, the cinematic as well as the visuals and just the soundtrack, everything was just next level. Yeah. It was next level. Yeah. So if you haven't watched Art of Flight, I highly recommend watching that. That still to this day is just mind blowing, the cinematic.
Yeah. And it really kicked off with this trip in Alaska. We sat for, I would say, 10 days at the cabin in the rain. Had no idea. We'd never been there before, so we had no idea what the terrain was like. We didn't know if it was raining up top or if it was snowing. And then once it cleared, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, it's 10 years ago, and nothing has come close to it. You know, just the riders were they just hit anything, land everything. Wow. The snow was perfect. Wow. Stability was good. It just you would be like, that was the best day ever. Wow. And then you go the next day and it would be better than the day before. And it just kept compounding on top of each other. Yeah. It was unbelievable. Wow. Yeah. And just the things that happened, you know, just could never be recreated. Absolutely. Like, you know, once in a lifetime trip. Yeah. Wow. Amazing. Can't say enough about it. Gorgeous. Yeah. So happy to be on that trip. Jeez. And another perfect example from the same trip, right? That's steep. That's steep. And there's so many behind the scenes stories to how this happened. Is the John and Travis, they do a run and we shoot it. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go back up to the top because I want to get into a new position for the next line. So I'm on the radio. I'm like, hey, hold the helicopter for me. I'm packing up my gear. I'll race down to the bottom. So I zip down to the bottom. They get me to the top. I get dropped off, and the riders are instantly, in their line or at the top of their line. And the other helicopter's flying in the air. with the Cineflex camera.
Jeez.
And if you know anything about paying for a helicopter, it's expensive. So they're just, just basically burning money while I'm trying to get my board on, get into the right place.
Mm-hmm.
And over the radio, Kurt, the director, is like, let's go, hurry. And I'm like, I'm trying. And I kind of get close to where I wanted to be, or where I thought I wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I pull out the lens and I realize I'm so far away. And over the radio, he's like, forget it, John, drop. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I know what drop he's going to do. It's going to be insane. So I grab my bag. I got the camera in my hand, and I start riding towards this feature with the camera in front of my face. And while I'm sliding towards where I want to shoot from, I start shooting the shot. So,
jeez,
not really sure if I've got it or not. I'm just sweating and kind of all frazzled, and shoot this while I'm sort of coming down this side flank into the shot, and then obviously later that night to look back at it and go, wow. And this is one of the craziest airs of the trip, because he didn't, it's not like he rode down to the end and looked at that. He hit that with the perfect amount of speed to hit the transition just perfectly. If he came up short, he would hit one of those bumps and would have tumbled for, half kilometer. But he nailed it perfect. And to ride into that thing at the speed that he did was, mind blowing.
Wow, that's crazy.
So another interesting story for sure. That
absolutely, and
stoked that happened out or worked out.
Yeah, we had a question. Are you collaborating with the riders to concept, create, frame the images? I mean, definitely to a degree, but how much goes into that as you're kind of like concepting and like creating and doing these, because it's just gorgeous.
Yeah, so like I say, on a normal day in Whistler, we'd go on a snowmobile and we'd say, okay, we're going to go to this zone. We think that it's holding the best snow for where, how it came in with the winds or whatever. We'll go to a zone and we'll just drive around, and the riders will look for something that they want to hit. I'll also point out some things that I think would make good shots. Depends on their mind state. They might just want to be like, no, we need to get video shots.
Right.
We're going to go straight to a jump, build a jump, and just cycle through it and get as many tricks as they can. But some, and if that's the case, then I'll find the best angle I can. And usually every time I get a shot, I'll try moving around and finding something else. And then sometimes, they'll be doing, 900 or 12, whatever. And it just doesn't look good for a photo. So once they get the trick, then I'll say, hey, can you hit that again?
Yeah.
Just do a 180 or 360. And that's usually what works out for the best shot. So there is some collaboration. It's just knowing when to ask, I guess.
Right.
And, the best guys to shoot are also ones that understand what the shot will look like from where you are shooting. And they'll sometimes adapt the way they ride or the trick that they're going to do based on where the camera's set up.
I find sometimes you got to like show them the photo and you're like, this is what we're getting. And they're like, oh, and then they get excited about it because they're like, what is this guy doing? Like, is he all right shooting from that angle, or like, what is he showing? And then like you show them the concept. They're like, okay, let's do it again. This is what I can do. And then they're like pumped, but it's like, sometimes you got to like kind of like lead in with those and kind of like
for sure
engage the athletes or your subject, you guys, as you're kind of like doing it. It's like, that can make all the difference. It can make them enthused and then kind of going. So yeah, that's definitely something that we,
I find that's more so for the younger guys.
Yeah.
And as you work with them more, they understand that when the shots work out, then they're like, okay, if he says to do it, that kind of thing. And another example is I was shooting this feature and I said, guys, I think if you were to do this particular trick, we could get a cover. And one of the riders is like, I don't care. I don't like that trick. I'm not doing that trick. And the other guy is like, I'll give it a shot. The guy that gave it the shot had never had a photo published before in his life. And he got the cover of Transworld from doing that trick.
Like you said.
Yeah. It just like I said, and all worked out. And, it's not like that happens all the time.
Of course.
Good example of
your eye and like
together.
What that like kind of does. Like, that's impressive. Wow. Incredible. This shot, Scott, is incredible. So you guys, this is a composite image put together in post, but this is something he sequenced. What camera are you using for this? This is a lot of frames per second.
Yeah, it would have been, I think, about 12 frames a second.
Okay.
And I think it was probably a 1DX.
Yeah.
Would be my guess.
Yeah.
Or probably 1DX or the 1D Mark IV or whatever it was.
Right. Even putting those shadows in.
Yeah. But let's be honest, this is all about what John did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I just stood there and just followed him. That's one of the most insane airs ever on a snowboard. Right?
Yeah, but I mean, even like what draws my eye, I mean, like not only the action here is like the snow in the bottom left corner. As you kind of do, you have like the exposure right on that, but then it like leads to the darkness. Like you kind of have like a backdrop set to it that he like pops off way harder in that like darkness, and it's just like incredible.
For sure.
Great shot.
For sure.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Between Sets. Make sure to like and subscribe to be tuned in on all future episodes. Thank you.